Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mike McHaney. I'm an at-large circuit judge from the 4th Judicial Circuit, which consists of 9 counties, including Marion County, where I am from. I am running as a candidate for the Illinois 5th District appellate vacancy, which includes Bond County. I graduated from SIU Law School in 1982 and have been a judge for over 15 years. From 2014 through 2017, I served as the Chief Judge of the 4th Circuit, and during that time, I actively supported and was instrumental in securing the appointments of the first 2 Republican Associate Judges in the 4th Circuit in over 20 years. Over a 39-year legal career, I've handled over 200 jury cases to verdict, ranging from multi-million-dollar medical malpractice, breach of contract cases, to murders, most every felony and misdemeanor in the criminal code, and everything in between. And you are now asking yourselves, all right, McHaney, nice resume, but if we vote for you, how do we really know what we're getting? After all, John Roberts had a nice resume too. Sad. And that's the frustration with these judicial elections. While we are required to put our name on a ballot and run a public campaign, we are prohibited from telling you how we might rule on an issue that may come before us. Well, I'm not prohibited from telling you that I have guns, and I have lots of ammo for those guns, and my wife and I both have our concealed carry permits. I'm not prohibited from telling you that I believe we have way too many laws and not near enough common sense. We have way too much lawlessness and not near enough accountability. I know you're all veterans of lots of election cycles and have heard candidates tell you they're tough on crime. I invite you all, ask anyone you know in law enforcement or who works in the court system in any county where I have presided. I proudly stand on my record in criminal court. In fact, a retired liberal appellate judge once wrote in a published opinion that the appellate defender's office referred to McHaney criminal sentences as draconian. Well, I will never stop imposing criminal sentences allowed by law when I believe those sentences are necessary to help keep you safe. I am not prohibited from telling you my judicial heroes are Scalia and Clarence Thomas, not Ruth Bader Ginsburg and John Roberts. And I am not prohibited from telling you that I believe our United States Constitution is one of the most perfect documents ever written and is the greatest charter of human freedom in history. So what type of government did our founders give us? Some mistakenly label it a democracy. A true democracy is simply majority or mob rule. For example, under a pure democracy, a simple majority could outlaw redheads from voting. Instead, we were given a constitutional republic. The entire premise behind the founders' drafting of the Constitution can be summed up in 3 words. No more kings. The Constitution does not put a single person in charge. The framers instead took the job description of a monarch and broke it into 3 parts. It then gave each part or branch a distinct task. It then gave each branch some tools to oversee or check how the other 2 were doing. By comparison, most organizations we encounter, like corporations, schools, and churches, are designed as pyramid-like hierarchies. The animating principle behind the Constitution's structure is well known. It's called separation of powers. If the government is separated into 3 branches, the theory goes, no one branch has all the power, and tyranny, which the framers thought was inherent and unavoidable in human nature, can be evaded. So what happens when we fail to follow our constitutional structure? Here's one example. More and more, Congress has delegated its legislative authority to executive branch agencies. What happens when the power to legislate is effectively transferred to a branch not designed by the framers? A lot more laws written by people who never appeared on a single ballot and never received a single vote. Data from 2016 shows that federal departments, agencies, and commissions issued 3,853 rules, while Congress passed only 214 bills. That's 18 agency-made rules for every statute. The decade before saw 27 rules for every law. At the end of 2012, the number of pages in the Code of Federal Regulations exceeded 160,000. Today, it exceeds 180,000. That does not include the many thousands of pages of other sub-regulatory proclamations, memoranda, guidance documents, bulletins, and circulars that federal agencies issue each year and are practically as binding as any statute. In the midst of the Great Depression, the Empire State Building was constructed in less than a year and a half. Today, it would take 5 years just to complete the environmental impact study on the albino nematode. Madison warned that what we call the rule of law depends on the existence of laws that are reasonably clear, finite, and stable. Only then can people plan their lives and order their affairs. The rule of law comes under threat, he warned, when the laws become so voluminous they cannot be read or so incoherent they cannot be understood. Who but a team of $500 an hour tax attorneys and accountants could even begin to understand the Internal Revenue Code? And what happens when we ignore Madison's warnings? We get one of the most asinine statements ever made in American legislative history. Remember this, Jim? Well, we need to pass the bill so we can see what's in it.
Yep.
Madison's fears have become today's headlines. United States Supreme Court Justice Felix Frankfurter once observed, "The accretion of dangerous power does not come in a day. It does come, however slowly, from the generative force of unchecked disregard of the restrictions imposed by the Constitution." Thomas Jefferson warned that to take a single step beyond the boundaries established in the Constitution is to take possession of a boundless field of power. And what better example of a boundless field of power can there be than Washington, D.C.? The United States federal government stopped operating as constitutionally mandated long ago. It is now a leviathan, the most powerful force in the history of mankind, that has become dangerously unmoored from the people it represents and for whom it is supposed to work. Elites and the politically comfortable who control both parties in Washington are in another world, insulated from reality. In their smug arrogance and hostile indifference, these leaders don't even realize how much the people they are supposed to represent despise this uncontrollable monster they have spawned along the Potomac. The federal bloat is such that whole departments, vast bureaucracies, wasting hundreds of billions of dollars could be eliminated without any real impact on the average taxpayer. It is maddening to behold and has fed the national anger over a government gone berserk, not to mention that it has racked up over $30 trillion of debt and growing. Our founders repeatedly warned that future generations must not take the Constitution for granted. It works only insofar as we enforce it, and that we do this consistently from generation to generation, so our children are not left with a replacement that is far inferior. There is a large body of evidence suggesting that Americans' knowledge of their history and of the way in which their institutions have worked over the course of that history is embarrassingly meager. For example, a fourth of Americans believe the Declaration of Independence was written after the end of the Civil War, and fewer than a third can identify the three branches of our federal government. As distinguished historian David McCullough has written, while the clamorous popular culture races on, the American past is slipping away, out of sight and out of mind. We are losing our story, forgetting who we are and what it's taken to come this far. And not only that, like you, I never dreamed I would live in a time when it would actually take courage to defend or uphold our United States Constitution. Last year, while assigned to Clay County, Illinois, I was presided over the case of Bailey versus Pritzker, and I ruled that Pritzker's executive orders were unconstitutional. In December of last year, Mark Stein was guest hosting on the Rush Limbaugh radio show. He quoted from my ruling and said, "The greatest judge in the United States right now is a judge from Clay County, Illinois, Michael McHaney." Now, that's obviously a great honor to be praised by a person with the stature of a Mark Stein. But at the same time, I ask myself, what does that really say about the state of our judicial branch of government? That a judge from Southern Illinois would be singled out for such praise just for having the courage to uphold our Constitution. While I'm being praised on the Rush Limbaugh show, a northern newspaper article called me that hillbilly judge from Southern Illinois. Well, first, I would respond, there is no place better to be from than Southern Illinois, and second, I would remind that editor that 95% of the United States Continental Army would have been called hillbillies, and since they delivered us from British tyranny, I consider myself to be in great company. I'm not running for appellate court because I got praised on the Rush Limbaugh show. I decided to run when I saw all these judges and courts refuse to even hear or listen or accept these election challenge cases. When the United States Supreme Court refused to hear the Pennsylvania election case, Clarence Thomas dissented, and he said this, and I think it's brilliant. One wonders what this court waits for. We failed to settle this dispute before the election and thus provide clear rules. Now we again fail to provide clear rules for future elections. The decision to leave election law hidden beneath a shroud of doubt is baffling. By doing nothing, we invite further confusion and erosion of voter confidence. Our fellow citizens deserve better and expect more of us. I do not just tell you I've spent my legal career fighting for our Constitution, I have proven it. And I am asking for your support so that I can keep on proving it on the appellate court. No, I cannot tell you how I will rule, but I will tell you this is one judge who ain't ever gonna be woke, who will never cave to the mob. And as long as I have the honor and privilege of wearing the black robe, I will never stop upholding our Constitution and your civil liberties. Yeah. Thank you.
Any questions?
I would like to say thank you so much for pointing out that we're not a democracy. Every time I hear a government official say that, I want to scream. Yes. Does anybody have any questions?
Judge, I was in D.C. on January 6th.
Yes, ma'am.
And I did not go to the Capitol. But what are we going to do with these people that are being held in jail up there? That this was all a staged event, and we got to get these guys out of there. I mean, how do we get rid of these judges? What's our answer here?
The only answer.
I mean, I felt like I left my brothers in jail.
I know. I agree. It's an absolute aberration and an abomination that these people are in jail simply for exercising their constitutional rights to redress grievances to the federal government. They did not destroy anything. They were just there.
It was one of the coolest events I've ever addressed or been to in my life. And I just noticed yesterday there was on Gateway Pundit a gentleman dressed up as George Washington. And I had my picture taken with him, and I looked at the time frame. He was arrested on Thursday. And I had my picture taken. I looked at the time. It was 1:44, which everything was already done up there because we stayed at the monument. And I don't know what to do with this. I don't know if I should try to help or what. You know, I can't handle another one being left in the damn jails up there.
I know, and they're still there, and for no reason.
One got out 2 days ago.
This is straight out of Cuba,
It is.
Argentina, or Venezuela, or Russia, or China. The only remedy we have, and it's a lousy remedy if you live in Illinois, is the ballot box. Why is it a lousy remedy in Illinois? Because we virtually have one-party rule. Like Senator Bailey said, we're in the minority. We're powerless to affect an agenda that makes sense. I've got no good answers. It's a lousy answer to a great question.
So you don't have any answers on something we can start doing or anything?
The only thing to start do is, like the speaker says, stand up, speak out.
I've been doing that.
I know.
Yeah, she is.
It's,
Every election matters. I don't care if it's dog catcher, school board, governor, or president. We have to put conservatives in every single office in every single election. That's the only way to take back this madness.
and what about the Dominion machine? Will they be on this election? Because we don't have a chance. These have been audited for what, 6 years?
Certainly. And I believe that a town up north actually voted to have Dominion machines at their next election cycle.
Well, they've been in place, I think, since 2005.
Yes.
But they haven't been maintained or surveyed or whatever since 2016 election.
Sure.
So, because there are special groups that are looking at that and questioning that, because that's supposed to be serviced and making sure everything's accurate right before an election, and it's not been done, so.
And what good does it do if you don't have judges with the courage to say, I'm hearing the case?
Exactly.
I'm not saying I'm going to rule, but you're going to be allowed to present the evidence. So.
Thank you.